All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is now 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to our third session of 3 sessions today. My name is Mark Jones. I'm based at Georgia Educational Solutions in a little town called Atlanta, which is quite warm today. I am joined by Ms. Micaela Alpers, the president of the CTE, I should say the EDU division of Career Team, joining us today. I'm also joined by Justin Landry, who's pitching in on all of the closed captioning for us and this new session. So today we have a session on soft skills and employability by Career Team. And just to give you an idea of who they are, Career Team does a fantastic job in soft skills and employability across the nation for a number of major firms. They are also one of the newest partners of our package known as Electude, which provides a range of automotive technology, e-learning for both auto tech, electric drive, as well as heavy vehicles. So Career Team is on board now as a partner and can run right inside an Electude website or be sold separately for that matter if you do not have an automotive program. So your options vary based on the CTE pathway today. And we're just delighted to have Micaela with us. So I'm going to go ahead and hand the ball over to her at this point. And I'll be handling all the chat from this point forward, fielding your questions. We've done 4 polling questions as well. So please be sure to answer the poll and hand in the survey. And we have a special code word at the end of the session that will apply towards your credit. So thank you all. And Micaela, you have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you all this afternoon. Yes, I'm Micaela Alpers. I have the privilege of running our education division at Career Team. And basically, our background at Career Team, we're actually a workforce development consultancy firm. So what does that mean? We actually run career centers throughout the country. So we've been working directly with job seekers in various capacities, from the Job Corps population to workforce programs, TANF programs, the long-term unemployed, and so forth. So I just did want to give you a little bit of background about us, that we are not a big software company that suddenly built a career services platform, nor are we a big box publisher that decided to build content in the areas of student success and career readiness. This is actually what we do. So everything that I'm going to be talking about today is based on 24 years of directly working with career seekers and really understanding what some of those key barriers are to long-term career success, and trying to address those topics as early and as often as we can. So, we were founded in 1996. We are based out of Connecticut, but we do run operations all over the country. We have about 300 campuses, whether it's high schools, colleges, community colleges, technical institutions, and so forth, that partner with Career Edge, which is our higher education and K-12 platform. So just wanted to give that little bit of background so you'd have some context about where we're coming from. So I like to throw this slide up here that, we've been hearing about soft skills for so long, and I kind of say, okay, we know that people need to graduate understanding how to have a good attitude and how to work together in order to sustain long-term employment. But it's a little bit easier said than done. So, Google's done research on this. MIT put out a great study that I've included some links on in here. But really, when we're looking at those entry-level employment skills, there are some key things that pop off the page. For one thing, a student can do a phenomenal job with their core curriculum, but I would say that having sat on literally hundreds of employer advisory boards for our own career centers, as well as colleges and high schools throughout the country, they would definitely say that you can take an average skilled technician or attitude, and they'll hire them every day of the week, as compared to somebody who's highly skilled but doesn't necessarily know how to work and collaborate with their colleagues, their clients, and their patients, or whatever other individuals that they're working with. So customer service and team building skills, conflict resolution, listening, time management, these are all really critical factors to sustainable employment. So a couple of other things that we hear about, just to level set. We talk about soft skills. My favorite way to describe these skills is essential life skills, because soft skills almost has a little bit of a negative connotation, or it can. When you're telling a student that they need soft skills, it can feel a little too soft, for example. So essential life skills, I think, has a stronger correlation between if these skills are mastered and how much of a role they'll play in long-term success. So if you look at the QA Commons, they call it the essential employment qualities, essential life skills. And then another one out of Dartmouth is they're calling them power skills. So, again, having those strong technical skills paired with your essential skills is going to give you long-term success. So just to give a quick graphic on this, I use the automotive technician as an example because we are really excited about our new partnership with Electude. But really what it comes down to is students need to understand the core curriculum that you all are teaching in your CTE programs, whether it's culinary, whether it's cosmetology, whether it's allied health, or something on the tech and trade side. But when you can really intentionally pair their technical skill ability with these customer service and team building skills, we're going to start to see not only them gaining that entry level position, but also positioning themselves for upward mobility. So these are things that our employers are talking about all the time. I have not sat on one employer advisory board throughout the entire country where this exact topic hasn't come up. So we know it's critical. But at the same time, our students have changed. If you're working with the CTE population, it's no longer the exception, it's really the expectation that they can learn and consume in a digital way. So I've found that successful institutions are not fighting this anymore. They're really leaning into it. But how can we take this desire for just-in-time information, for bite-sized content, as well as an on-demand ability, and pair that with a high-touch implementation? So considering the employer and knowing full well that they're looking for these essential skills, and also considering that our student has changed, it starts to inform what the strategy needs to be to effectively implement these types of topics into our curriculum. The other thing that I like to talk about is that we have another third factor that's really shifted the way that we're addressing these topics and achieving sustainable employment, and that is innovations in education. So when I was back in elementary school or in high school, I don't think we had overhead projectors very often. We were still wheeling TVs into the classrooms with VHS, if we had any sort of technology at all. And we had lecturers at the front of the classroom giving a broadcast to the entire group of students and hoping that the information sticks. Technology has given us new strategies. So you see here that maybe here's a classroom full of technology-enabled centers, and now the Learning Resource Center coordinator or the faculty member is really serving as the guide on the side and individually coaching students on the particular areas that they need to up-level. So how much more valuable is an hour of a student's day if they're learning about soft skills development or interviewing or resume writing, if we're able to tailor that specific lesson to their shortcomings and their needs and not try to broadcast this message to the entire group. So this is more of the Emporium style model that we'll dig into even further. And then of course we have just individuals sitting at what's happening, I'm sure a lot for you all right now, where students are at home, they're learning all of their curriculum. So while I like to say that I wish it weren't a pandemic that has pushed us to this, I'm very grateful that as a career team, we were accidentally prepared for this. We had already built out an entire platform for remote engagement with our career seekers, our students, etc. And we have not seen a disruption in our service delivery model for students to be able to still develop and grow their soft skills in this new remote education world that we're living in. So I know that as we're preparing for the fall, I feel like I'm a mom, I have young kids in elementary education, and every single day I'm getting new emails about what the fall is going to look like. So I'm sure you guys are all kind of in limbo and scrambling around. And I like to say that what's beautiful about our partnership with Electude and Career Edge specifically, we've worked through every implementation and have models and methodologies for completely asynchronous remote education, as well as a combination of hybrid and face-to-face. Okay, so let's just review. We took a look at what our employers are expecting of us. It is not an add-on that you address soft skills. It's absolutely critical for sustainable employment to ensure that your curriculum has intentionally addressed soft skills development in a meaningful way. We've also talked about how our student has changed, their expectations of us as educators, how they engage with content, the way content is delivered to them in bite sizes and relative and relevant to their to where they are in their academic journey is all really critical. And I encourage you all, if you are a little on the fence about putting technology into your academic process, I think our hand has been forced by now with this pandemic. But beyond that, if we really lean into these tools, we can develop a very high touch and high tech delivery model that's going to provide maximum outcomes. And then finally, like I mentioned before, we've got innovations in education, whether it's that Emporium style model, remote education, or hybrid modalities. Okay, so I just wanted to actually throw a question out to the group. So Mark, if you get any feedback on this, let us know. Often what we see when it comes to soft skills development is that if this is already an intentional part of your curriculum, there's a few common models. This isn't an exhaustive list. So my question is, if you do have a soft skills component to your curriculum, or first off, do you have one at all? So yes or no. And then if you do, are you delivering this material in a bookend course format? So what does that mean? Do you have a first course at the beginning of the student journey where they're learning their foundations, maybe taking some study skills and some of those success strategies up front, and then coming back to a career readiness course at the end of their program where they're learning interviewing, resume writing, and so forth? Is that the model that your school is utilizing? Another model that we often see in the high schools is the workshop model delivered by the counseling departments, where they'll go in and do a financial literacy module, or maybe a interviewing or applications, or whatever it is that we lean heavily on the counseling departments for this. And then finally, some programs, some states even have an integrated curriculum model where, in conjunction with their core courses in healthcare or trades or technology, there's a component or a student learning outcome that's tied to soft skills in every single one of their courses. So if you guys have any feedback for us on which model that you're using now, please do let us know. And Mark, feel free to interrupt me. But I'll talk a little bit about these different models and what works and what doesn't work. But go ahead.
Yes, Micaela, we have two bits of input here. One from Daphne Harvey, and she's asking right away, is this strictly online? And then I'll send you another question in just a moment.
Sure. No, we have our materials built for fully face-to-face classroom-based instruction. We have them built as woven across the student journey. We also have online courses that are facilitated. And then lastly, sort of a on-demand or self-paced method that institutions employ. So I have a full-time instructional design team, and I would like to say that at this point we have come up with every model for implementation, but we just came up with a new one this past week with one of our schools where their campus operations are disrupted, and historically they've had their career services workshops led by a specific person on each campus. And what we found is that now that we're all forced to remote education, we've actually been able to tap into the subject matter expert on the topics and broadcast them to all students. So I'm seeing that happen across high school districts, as well as even some of the college campuses where we're coming up with new models for scaling our best subject matter experts.
Very good. Okay. So John Fagan asks, here's the big question. If it was all wrong the way we were educated, no tech, lecture, chalk, books, paper, and no gum in class, he says, Why can we read and many grads can't read or use a ruler or deal with problems, etc.? Are we gaining the brave new world of high-tech EDU, or are we really headed in the wrong direction? It's a great question.
It is a great question, and my goodness, I wish we had a 3-hour session to start digging into every one of those layers. You know, I think kids have changed, and how they operate in the world has changed. So much of that has been driven by technology. It's less about mastery of topics and more about the ability to find information today. But I tend to agree that it's a slippery slope. And if we don't pause and force some of these issues around interpersonal communications and really digging into students' hearts and minds and helping them create emotional attachments to where they want to go, we're doing them a huge disservice, because this is probably one of the only moments in time that we've actually got 5 generations working simultaneously. And
Yep.
so what I have found is that we have maybe a baby boomer hiring manager who's trying to communicate with a recent high school graduate, and it's literally like speaking Spanish and Chinese in the same conversation. It doesn't translate. So I don't think that we should expect the employer to change their expectation of communication of the employees coming in. It's our job as educators to let students know you can do a fantastic job and learn how to crank that wrench and do a phenomenal job taking blood pressures. But if you can't look people in the eye and do what we're doing right now, you're sunk. So with all that being said, I don't believe in a cut loose and pray that they go through this technology and hope for the best. We've really paired a high touch and a high tech method and really focused on building more of a coaching model into all of our content. So it's written all in the first person, it's talking directly to the students. And that's why we've seen them really gravitate, is that they almost feel like they get an on-demand career coach.
Awesome. I've got 1 or 2 more comments here quickly. And before we get away today, I'd love for you to show the toolbox, Micaela, if you wouldn't mind. Maybe the job interview skill part, some video interaction was very cool last time I saw you present. So Daphne is responding once again, and she works in a correctional facility. So how could we possibly positively impact that institution?
Wonderful. So I'm glad that you jumped in. We actually run we run the American Job Centers in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And one of our affiliate sites is actually the prisons and the jails. And we've set up, the jails tend, and any sort of correctional institutions tend to have some very tight technology restrictions. So we've actually built the curriculum. We ship out workbooks and all these lesson plans and handouts and different things so that they can deliver these types of workshops in a live, facilitated, no tech session. And then because of some of their internet restrictions, we actually created CD-ROMs and different things so that they could still access our interview simulators and all kinds of stuff. Running locally, yeah. So I am not going to judge any institution that is still doing things face-to-face in the old-fashioned way, because I still ship out probably 50,000 physical career edge workbooks every year. And my students, the feedback is constantly that they feel like they have their own personal journal as they're working through their journey, whether it's correctional facilities. We actually are rolling out a program with substance abuse recovery centers in the state of Kentucky right now. So anywhere that there's a person who's here that wants to go to here, Career Edge is a benefit.
Very good. Okay, 2 more quick comments. Catherine McClin kind of added to the institution that we're discussing currently, and that is that she works in correction, and we have an order for some soft skill videos. I will list soft skill on the board for this week. Students included their soft skill in their job interview. And also from Ann Thaxton, she says, our soft skills are probably more integrated, and for many classes, the teacher does their own lesson. Many of the soft skills have actually been taken out of our standards, I believe it's supposed to say. So out of our standards, yes.
Well, so this is another component that I'll get to a little bit later in the discussion, but one of the big challenges we have, particularly in some of the CTE areas, is we have faculty coming in that are practitioners from their field, and they themselves aren't always necessarily comfortable talking about interviewing or goal setting because maybe they haven't done it themselves in
Right.
a so one of the things that has really empowered our own case management staff as well as system-wide implementations of Career Edge is that we standardize the lesson plans. So I find that that model works very well at the CTE level, is if we're looking at the curriculum from a top-down approach, that we can actually take components of this material, weave it across the student journey, and arm any facilitators that are going to be teaching this with maps of, on this day, here's the topic, these are the videos to play, this is the discussion prompt to facilitate, and these are the activities to do with your students. Whether they're doing it in their physical workbook, printing it out on a handout, or going straight to their laptop and device, I've got them covered for any delivery method, and we just want to make sure that they're getting the material.
Understood. Okay. Unfortunately, Shelley lost power in Knoxville, but hopefully she'll get that back soon. That's all I have currently, except for John Fagan now says industry is begging for soft skills, and we know that's true. So,
well, thank you for affirming my opening slide. So this is just a snapshot of one example of an automotive program that we built where they've got, you know, it looks like they've got 8 or 9 total courses. And what we did is we took our library of soft skills modules and broke them up across the student journey. I have some institutions where every Friday for 1 hour, they have soft skills development, and we've broken the material up and delivered it across the student journey. If you are an elective school, we've already chunked all of these modules out, and they can be dragged and dropped right into your core courses. So, you know, I know that the theory and the big discussion is a little easier to digest than how it actually comes to life in the practice, but my team is fully available to support that process, and we've been doing this a while now. So happy to share how these processes come to life.
awesome.
So, but I mean, if you glance at this, what you're noticing is as they're coming through these courses, they're getting bites of this material, and I prefer this model. I really actually refer to it as the booster shots approach. So, you know, when we were little ones and we would go get our vaccines, the idea is the more exposures or the more times you go, then those skills or you're going to be immune to those diseases. I call it immunity to bad behaviors, right? So if we're dripping soft skills across the student journey, and we're not waiting till the end of their program, at that point it's too late. If we really want students to achieve sustainable employment by the time that they graduate, they should have been learning about networking and looking at people in their existing network, building their resumes, practicing mock interviews months in advance. And that's why the bookend course model is great, but I prefer to build touch points at the very least so that these skills are building over time. All right, so those teaching strategies I mentioned, and I want to be clear to the question earlier, are we over technologizing our student population? Our material is facilitated live on campuses every single day, whether it's done as workshops or in actual dedicated courses. That is totally a realistic expectation, and we do arm faculty members with the lesson plans, PowerPoints, discussion prompts, as well as the platform for students to either complete their work online or on a physical activity. So with that being said though, there's a few models for some of those more high impact activities like resume creation and mock interviewing, where an emporium style model that I described earlier is very effective. So how I would look at this is if you've got an hour or an hour and a half of lab time, you start the discussion with a 15-minute introductory topic lecture, show some videos, and then cut them loose on the technology and serve as coach as you're going through. So we're pairing the high touch with the high tech. We can do the same thing on Zoom. I actually, when COVID hit, we've trained about 2,000 career services advisors, faculty, and case management staff across the country on how to take what they were doing physically in the classroom and translate it to online. So we've already adapted all of our discussion prompts and our lesson plans for online facilitation if you still want to address these topics in a synchronous, meaning everybody's on at the same time format, but in an online. The flipped classroom model I really like for anytime you're addressing a topic that has some basic fundamentals that you're saying over and over and over again. This is what we hear often from counseling departments, is that students will come in, they want to write a resume, but it's an hour to an hour and a half long activity. There's no time for that. So what if we said, you want to have a resume writing conversation? Great. Let me take you to your Electude Edge toolkit, create the first draft of your resume using this tool, and now come to me and we can do the fine-tuned details. So I look at that as, historically, counselors and workforce offices on campuses have been the framers, the fine detail, like done the entire house, right? Now we have a platform that can automate the foundational work, and you can just be the craftsman details coming in behind the scenes. And how much more impactful and how many more students could we reach if we were spending 15 minutes cleaning up the last few details instead of an hour to an hour and a half on every single one of these activities? Lastly, I mentioned earlier, hybrid and distance access. A lot of schools want to put soft skills into their curriculum, but it's simply, there's no hours in their approved programs. So by offering an on-demand library of assets is at least a start. It's my least preferred model because I think the students that actually will proactively go to those tools are probably the ones that need it the least. Maybe they're ahead of the game, and the ones that really need it wouldn't necessarily go to them on their own. So a hybrid model works really well there, where you introduce the topic in the classroom and then have them go into the tools as homework assignments or on their own. I have a lot of schools that will make some of these capstone projects that are requirements of graduation. All right, any questions that you're seeing, Mark?
Yes, we have two more comments quickly. Let me get to Allison Bailey's first. She says, I teach work-based learning where I have to teach soft skills. My problem is helping them see their strengths and weaknesses in these skills. Do any of these modules help them understand what type of career they would like to go into?
Yeah, actually, we do have a full assessment in Career Edge that does, it's a career cluster inventory. So it'll ask them a picture-based assessment, and based on how they score, we'll provide them with their top industry areas. So Career Edge does a lot of candidate preparation on the soft skills and networking and all of that, but we also do have assessments built in if that's a need of the institution.
Okay, very good. One more quick comment from John Fagan again. By the way, Shelly got her power back on in Knoxville. That's good.
All right.
Awesome, Shelly. A CEO, John Fagan says, a CEO and also the president of a very large factory last year literally begged me to send them workers who would show up on time, ready to work every day, can read a tape measure, willing to learn and follow orders. That's what our students need to learn. This is a nationwide request, willing to network on this subject. Mr. John Fagan. Thanks, John.
Well, John, that was a perfect lead-in, because I actually was just about to give you a snapshot of some of the module topics and the ways that we're addressing those very issues that you just mentioned. One of the major factors, and I do see this, not to say that every CTE student is less academically inclined, because there are plenty that are high academic achievers, but some aren't. And so often what we do in the world of education is we motivate through the language of achievement. And if somebody comes from an under-resourced background, their primary motivator is relationships. So I'm also personally certified in Bridges Out of Poverty. And I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Dr. Ruby Payne's work, but we really take that need for relationship building and self-awareness and confidence building seriously in how we develop our modules. So you'll notice that I don't jump right into time management and some of those disciplinary things around, you have to do this to get a job. What we were first doing inside of these modules is talking to the students about who they are. You know, who are you? What motivates you? Why are you choosing to make positive changes in your life? What does this career mean for you and for your future? We're then going to address managing change and your attitude, where we're talking to our students about, hey, these are the reasons that people resist change, and guess what? We all do it. So if you can start to have some self-awareness about your self-sabotage techniques, now, imagine how beneficial that's going to be for you as you move into the workforce in your future. We're also going to talk about attitude and how the way we see the world is really going to shape our outcomes. So what lens are you looking through? From there, we're going to start establishing some goals where we're getting into short-term, midterm, and long-term goals, how to set SMART goals and make sure that those goals are balanced. And so I guess what I'm wanting you to all notice is that before I jump into here's how you take a blood pressure, here's how you cut hair, I am going to build an emotional attachment to this career outcome, because when we do that, when we're constantly reminding a student of their why behind what they're doing, not only do our retention numbers go up, but we soften them in the process. From there, we have a series of student success related modules on study skills and learning to learn. To your point, John, the biggest thing we talk about in learning to learn is that if you want to have a successful career, you need to be a student of your profession. And you are always going to be learning new skills, new models, new technology. So better to learn, be adaptable and learn how to learn now, because it's going to make you that much more adaptable and positioned for upward mobility in the future. We also have a whole module on becoming a successful online student. So for anybody that's very, still nervous about how their students are going to make these big long-term transitions, if it's going to be necessary in your state, I'm in Colorado, so it changes by minute. We've got a whole translation guide. Hey, if you're used to going into a classroom and talking to a teacher, this is what a communication looks like in a learning management system and a discussion prompt. If you're used to going into a library on campus, here's what a learning resource center looks like in an online environment and how you navigate that. But the difference is in any of our student success modules, because our primary goal is workforce attachment when students graduate, we constantly remind them about how these skills are going to help them on the job. All right. Often we find that students don't take their student success programs seriously because they don't want to be students. There's a reason they're in CTE programs. They want to learn a skill and get into the workforce. So if we can address their workplace attachment inside of these topics, their interest in actually learning them goes through the roof and they retain the information. From there, we're going to address even more of those skills gap issues. We have full modules on financial literacy where we're getting into what's a credit score, what's an annual percentage rate, what's the difference between a student loan versus a grant, how do you set a budget? We also have content on cultural diversity and conflict resolution. So this is a big one. And what John was describing, there's so much that students come into the workplace with their biases, because guess what? We all have them, from our families to our religious backgrounds to the regions of the country that we grew up in, gender, it all plays a role. So how can we turn those biases into curiosity and have more productive working relationships? When we can stop judging behavior and start understanding why people are doing what they're doing, we're better with clients, we're better with teammates, we're better with bosses. From there, we've got working in teams content where we're talking about group dynamics and how to make decisions in a group environment and the different roles that we play. And then we start building into some more of the networking and job search strategies, preparing for the interview and so forth. So you probably saw a scaffolding approach. Who are you? Let's set some goals. Let's emotionally attach to this new career. Let's give you some skills to be successful while you're here in school, but remind you constantly how this is going to help you when you enter the workforce. We're then going to address all those key issues around communication and reliability with time management and working in teams and conflict resolution. And from there, once we've firmly established some of those skills, we're going to start building your personal brand, talking about how interviewing is a buyer-seller relationship. So how do we prepare? If you're going to do an online interview like we're doing right now, you still need to shower and look behind you and make sure that there's a professional setting. We're also going to get into the different personality types of interviewers, and you have to really understand the needs of that specific employer, match yourself as a solution. I like to say we give students a lifelong skill set because we teach them the process of sales and negotiation. How do you understand needs? How do you answer questions according to that specific challenge? How do you overcome objections? How do you ask for next steps? These are processes that they're going to do, whether they're an automotive technician working with a client, whether they're a hairstylist asking a client what they're looking for. And if they can learn it here, we're going to benefit them in so many different ways. Finally, we're also committed to students' long-term success. So we've got on-the-job success content where we talk about taking initiative, defining what that looks like for yourself. In any work experience programs, this is a great module to get them into right before they go out. And then finally, in work life, in preparing it for your future, we talk about work-life balance, next level financial literacy. What's a 401k? Why should I participate in that if my company offers one? We discuss the benefit of having healthcare benefits and vacation time. We also get into the importance of healthy sleep patterns and nutrition and diet and exercise and all the factors that contribute to overall well-being. So within each of these modules, we address these topics in lots of different ways. We have content, we've got video content, we have discussion prompts, we have interactive activities, assessments, and the like. We even have podcasts built in, so students can download and listen to audio lectures and so on and so forth. So John, I know you've been pretty vocal on this call, but these are the kinds of things that we're hearing about. And I want you to know that every single topic we build in Career Edge is directly coming from the end user or the end customer of this entire system of education, which is the employer market.
Awesome. Thank you, Micaela. You have a couple of Ruby Payne fans in here, by the way.
Oh, good.
So definitely a couple of educators have recognized her name. And John continues to chime in here, and rightfully so. He has a couple of good comments here, and that is, he said, you said it, what industry wants is not the approved curriculum. Then he goes on to say, we really need to honestly evaluate the approved curriculum. And then finally, I don't believe the students are broken. The system we apply to them is broken. Mm-hmm. You are on the right track, he says. So.
Well, I will take all of that and more. Go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, we have one more question here, and that is from, I believe it is Megan Sager. So are the modules free to use, and can we use it on our own with our own students? The answer to that I can add is yes, absolutely. So I represent a product called Electude. Typically it's held in an automotive technology or heavy vehicle session, or I should say a pathway or classroom, where Career Team is a plug-in, a partner, if you will, with a particular price set per student. But yes, we offer free test drives for as long as you need to evaluate the curriculum. So if you don't mind, Megan, I'll list my email, and of course, Micaela's in there as well. Reach out to one of us, and we will set you up. I can set you up with a test drive of your own Electude site where Career Team's Career Edge content will be positioned for you to go ahead and test drive with you and your students. So absolutely, we can do that. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, very good. Well, I thought it would be nice to also show you all in real time how some of these toolkit items work. Going back to Ruby Payne, one of my big foundational philosophies when we're building tools is that we assume no prerequisite knowledge, but we're always delivering without judgment. All right. So what does that mean? Sometimes if you send somebody to Microsoft Word and say, write a resume, and it's a blank document, you get nothing. Simultaneously, if you send them into a tool where they don't have any coaching and they've got fields and fields and fields to complete, you're gonna get the same outcome, nothing. Paralysis by analysis, don't know where to start, it's too overwhelming. So what we've done with all of our tools is really tried to pair the teaching with the doing, right? So if I'm learning about interviewing, I should be doing an interview in real time. If I'm learning about resume writing, I should be doing a resume. And so with every single Career Edge module, we have students leaving with something actionable in their hands. All right, so I am actually back over here in the toolkit. Can you see my screen, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn my camera off so I can actually show you how this works. But when students come in here, this is an interview simulation trainer. They have a coach, and I'll also let you all know that we are extremely sensitive to the fact that we serve a very diverse population. So as you look at our content and our videos and so forth, you're going to see a lot of backgrounds and ages and faces and etc. You probably just saw that my webcam popped up, and I am now inside of this virtual interview simulator where I can actually play a question.
Welcome to the interview. I'm excited to meet you and learn about your background and skills. Why don't we start with the first question? Tell me about yourself.
And now in real time, I can say, hi, I'm Micaela. I think I would be the best medical assistant for your organization because I have excellent customer service skills. But if I was not doing a great interview and I was staring at the ground and I wasn't talking very eloquently or whatever it is, now a student can see how they're doing in real time, right? So I can play this question back, I can re-record this, I can do this as many times as I want. And this is one of the big barriers that our schools have to doing mock interviewing is it's so time intensive and requires so much coordination. But when we can put them through a simulation and allow them to answer questions over and over again, now this is that flipped classroom model. If we have them go through this first and come to your career day where they're actually doing their mock interviews, they're going to be so much more prepared and their answers are going to be more polished because they've had a chance to practice this on their own. If I get stuck, I can just pop up my coach. He's going to now give me a quick idea of how I should appropriately answer this question, and away I go. The other thing you'll notice here is we have a generate URL button. So they can generate a URL, they can share it with you as faculty to review their answers and give them feedback on this particular tool. So that's just one idea of how our resources work, but we've got lots of different questions loaded in here and a chance for students to practice over and over again. I won't show you every single one of these tools because I know we're coming up on time. But this is one example, our resume builder. This is something that is just extremely time intensive for students to complete in a one-on-one counseling session. So what we've done is we've taken our same model where we've got a coach who's guiding us through this process. I can now come in here to create my resume and I can select my program of study. So this is the Electude platform. We have mostly automotive content here, but because we work across industries, we also have backgrounds in allied health and cosmetology and culinary arts and IT and everything else. Now my coach is going to tell me about the differences between a chronological and a functional resume, and I can come into the next step. And you'll see that when I get in here, going back to Ruby Payne's philosophies, we've chunked this, right? So now as a student, instead of looking at fields and fields and fields to complete, I can simply click into one section, play a video about what I should include in my summary, and now I've got bullet points that align with my program outcomes that I can just click and drop into my resume. When I move to the next section, you're going to see work history here. I've even got a drop down of previous places that I may have worked. For our CTE and high school programs, we've also got things like babysitting, car washing, lawn care, just lots of skill sets that are going to include those transferable skills that our employers are looking for that students don't necessarily know how to articulate in a resume. So when I click on this, if I've ever worked at McDonald's or a restaurant, I can just click and drop these into my resume and away I go. When I get to the last step, you'll see here that we actually do have quite a bit of fun with our naming conventions. So students can select a resume style, whether they like LeBron Jobs or Pablo P. Carrillo, and they have a Word document that they can take out of the system. So this is not a PDF. It is meant to be edited if they want to run with it. Of course, they can download it as a PDF as well. But a lot of tools out there, you have to be mindful of this. They're either not compatible with Google Docs and all of the Google suite of products, and that's really prohibitive for a lot of students that don't have the Microsoft suite on their home computers, but we also have it available in Microsoft. So if I'm a counselor or a faculty member and I want to review and provide feedback on this tool, I certainly can. So I know we only have just a couple minutes. I just want to let you know, we do the same thing with cover letter writing. They even have simulations of how to fill out job applications. When students do this in here and they print it out, they now have a fast-track cheat sheet with all their references, their dates, their facts and figures in one place, and it ends up saving them a lot of time and heartache. But we've paired this job application with pop-ups and tutorials for everywhere that we typically see students making mistakes. So going back to John's comments earlier, if they're using text language in here and forgetting to capitalize their first letter of their name, it's going to tell them that. When they get to email address, we've got a whole video on what makes a professional email address. Who makes a good reference? You probably don't want to pick your aunt or your cousin. We give them ideas for that as well. So just a quick idea of how we've paired the practical and the teaching and learning all in one place. And this is all available through Electude's platform. All right, so I know we only have 1 minute left. I'm going to stop talking.
Micaela, great job. The reviews are fantastic. Of course, we'll get to look at them later on. Comments continue to flow in. A good question here by, I believe it was Megan, said, how much is it priced at? And that's simple. There are two basic pricing components to any career team, career edge component for Electude. Electude being the LMS, the website that you would be able to manage as instructor. So you have a $500 site license for the Electude website, and that is for a full year. And then the Career Edge content complete with the toolkit is priced at $25 per student. And that's it. All of your support, all of your training, any new content, support at both Electude level here at GES in Atlanta, and of course with Micaela's team back at Career Team. So we are right up on 3:15. We really appreciate your time. I wish it was an open forum where we had the ability to see you and open the mic up and let you talk a little bit, but that's just unfortunately not the format here for the CTE Institute. We hope to see you in person next year at your conferences, and I can't thank Micaela and Justin enough for their time today. Thank you very much. And everyone have a great afternoon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.